The entire cast and crew of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly started laughing when Sammy Davis Jr. picked up Clint Eastwood's Colt .45. A black entertainer challenging the fastest draw in Hollywood? It seemed like a joke. Then Sammy's hand moved, and nobody was laughing anymore. It was August 12, 1966, at Cinecittà Studios in Rome, and Sergio Leone was wrapping up what would become the most iconic Western in film history. The final gunfight scene between Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach had just been completed, and the crew was celebrating another perfect take of Eastwood's lightning-fast draw. But nobody on that set knew that they were about to witness something that would make Clint Eastwood's famous quick draw look like slow motion. Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't supposed to be there. He was in Rome performing at the Sistina Theater. But his curiosity about filmmaking had brought him to the studio during his afternoon break. The guards let him in because, well, he was Sammy Davis Jr., one of the most famous entertainers in the world. He'd been watching from the sidelines as Leone directed take after take of the climactic three-way standoff. Eastwood, in his iconic poncho and squinting eyes, had been drawing his Colt .45 with the kind of precision that had made him the undisputed king of Western cinema. Cut. Perfect. Leone had shouted after Eastwood's final draw, "That's the fastest we've captured on film. Bravissimo." The crew gathered around Eastwood, congratulating him on what the director was calling the definitive gunslinger moment in cinema history. Eastwood, never one for excessive celebration, simply nodded and began to holster his weapon. That's when Sammy stepped forward. "Mind if I take a look at that iron, partner?" Sammy asked, his voice carrying that distinctive blend of Harlem Street smart and Vegas sophistication. The entire set went quiet. Here was this 5'6" black entertainer dressed in an expensive Italian suit, asking to handle the weapon that had just created movie magic in the hands of the man with no name. Clint looked at Sammy with that famous squint. Not sure if this was some kind of joke. "You know how to handle a gun, Mr. Davis?" "Well," Sammy replied with that $1,000,000 smile, "I've been known to hit a few targets in my day." The crew started chuckling. This was Sammy Davis Jr., the guy who sang The Candyman and danced with Frank Sinatra. What could he possibly know about gunfighting? Eastwood, always a gentleman, despite his tough guy image, handed over the Colt .45. "Be careful with that. It's not loaded, but it's still a real weapon." Sammy took the gun and examined it with the kind of careful attention that surprised everyone watching. He checked the balance, tested the weight, and spun the cylinder with a precision that suggested this wasn't his first time handling a firearm. "Nice piece," Sammy said, getting a feel for the weapon. "Feels like a genuine 1873 single-action Army. About 2.5 pounds. .45 caliber. Good balance point." Now the crew wasn't chuckling anymore. This level of technical knowledge wasn't what anyone expected from a song and dance man. Leone, always fascinated by unexpected moments, called for the cameras to keep rolling. "This could be interesting footage," he whispered to his cinematographer. "You know, Mr. Eastwood," Sammy said, still examining the gun, "I couldn't help but notice your draw technique. Very smooth, very professional." "What was your time on that last take?" Eastwood looked puzzled. "My time, your draw time," Sammy clarified. "From holster to target acquisition. I'd guess about, maybe 0.8 seconds. That's pretty fast for film work." Now everyone was paying attention. Draw times weren't something entertainers typically discussed with movie stars. Actually, the script supervisor called out, checking his stopwatch notes, it was 0.75 seconds. "Best we've recorded all day." Sammy nodded appreciatively. "That's respectable. Mind if I give it a try?" The laughter started then. Not mean-spirited, but the kind of amused chuckling that happens when someone clearly doesn't understand what they're getting into. "Mr. Davis," Eastwood said, with a bemused smile, "this isn't like performing on stage. Quick draw is a specialized skill. It takes years to develop the muscle memory and timing." "I understand," Sammy replied, positioning himself in the same spot where Eastwood had just performed his scene. "But sometimes you pick up skills in unexpected places." What nobody on that set knew was that Sammy Davis Jr. had been fascinated by Western culture since childhood. Growing up touring with his father's vaudeville act, he'd spent countless hours in Western towns, learning from real cowboys and former gunfighters who worked as extras in early Hollywood Westerns. More importantly, Sammy had been secretly practicing quick draw for over 15 years. It had started as a party trick to impress audiences during his nightclub acts, but it evolved into a serious hobby. He'd studied under Bob Munden, who would later be recognized as the fastest gun in the world, and had practiced daily during his downtime between shows. But Sammy had never mentioned this skill publicly. In the 1960s, a black entertainer with a reputation for lightning-fast gun handling might have sent the wrong message to audiences still struggling with civil rights tensions. "All right, Mr. Davis," Leone said, genuinely curious now. "Show us what you can do." Sammy holstered the Colt .45 in the gun belt that the prop department had quickly adjusted to fit him. He took his position, feet shoulder-width apart, right hand resting casually near the gun butt. "Someone want to call it?" Sammy asked. "I'll time it," the script supervisor said, raising his stopwatch. "On your mark," Eastwood called out, now genuinely interested to see what would happen. The set fell completely silent. 37 cast and crew members, plus one of the most famous Western movie stars in history, all focused on a 5'6" entertainer who was about to attempt something that might embarrass him in front of Hollywood royalty. Draw. What happened next took exactly 0.20 seconds, but it seemed to occur outside of time itself. Sammy's hand moved in a blur that was barely visible to the naked eye. The Colt .45 seemed to simply appear in his hand, pointed directly at the target, with a speed and precision that left everyone speechless. The script supervisor stared at his stopwatch in disbelief. 2/2 of a second, he stammered. "That can't be right." He clicked the stopwatch again, looking at it from different angles, as if the device might be malfunctioning. "Let me see that," Eastwood said, taking the stopwatch. He examined it, shook it, and handed it back. "It's working fine." The silence on the set was deafening. Everyone was staring at Sammy, who was calmly holstering the weapon as if he'd just demonstrated how to tie a shoe. "Not bad," Sammy said modestly. "I'm a little rusty. On a good day I can usually break 0.18. Clint Eastwood, the man who had built a career on being the fastest gun in the West, stood there looking at Sammy Davis Jr. with something approaching awe. "Mr. Davis," Eastwood said slowly, "where in the hell did you learn to do that?" "Well," Sammy replied with that characteristic grin, "when you grow up in show business, you pick up all kinds of skills. Never know when you might need to entertain a tough crowd." What followed was 20 minutes of the most surreal conversation in Western movie history. Sammy began explaining the mechanics of quick draw, the importance of grip positioning, the role of peripheral vision in target acquisition, the muscle memory required for consistent performance. Leone was frantically signaling his cameraman to keep filming. This was pure gold, a masterclass in gunfighting from the last person anyone would have expected. "The key," Sammy was explaining to a mesmerized Eastwood, "is not to think about speed. You think about smoothness. Speed is just what happens when smoothness becomes automatic." Eastwood, who had spent months preparing for his Western roles, was getting advanced instruction from a nightclub entertainer who had just made his professional quick draw look like amateur hour. Would you mind showing me that grip technique?" Eastwood asked, genuinely humbled. For the next hour, on a movie set in Rome, Sammy Davis Jr. gave private gun handling lessons to Clint Eastwood, while Sergio Leone's cameras captured every moment. "Your stance is good," Sammy was saying, adjusting Eastwood's positioning. "But you're thinking too much about the mechanics. Trust your muscle memory. Let your body do what it knows how to do." The crew watched in amazement as the most famous Western star in the world took instruction from the most unlikely gunslinger in entertainment history. When they finally ran out of film, Leone approached Sammy with an expression of complete bewilderment. "Mr. Davis," the director said, "I must ask, have you ever considered acting in a Western?" Sammy laughed. "Mr. Leone, I don't think the world is ready for a black cowboy just yet, but I appreciate the thought." What Sammy didn't know was that his demonstration that day would influence Western filmmaking for decades to come. Leone incorporated Sammy's techniques into his direction of future gunfight scenes, and Eastwood began practicing the grip and stance modifications that Sammy had shown him. More importantly, the footage of that afternoon became legendary in Hollywood circles. For years, it was shown at industry parties and private screenings, always with the same reaction: stunned silence, followed by incredulous laughter. But the story didn't end there. Word of Sammy's incredible demonstration spread through Hollywood, and soon other actors were quietly seeking him out for quick draw instruction. Paul Newman consulted with him before filming Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. James Garner asked for tips before Support Your Local Sheriff. Sammy never publicized his gunfighting skills, but he became Hollywood's secret weapon, the entertainer who could outdraw anyone in town and then teach them how to do it better. Years later, when Eastwood was asked about the fastest gun he'd ever seen in real life, he would always tell the story of that afternoon in Rome. People think the fastest gun in the West was some cowboy from the 1880s, Eastwood would say. But I can tell you for certain that the fastest gun I ever saw belonged to a 5'6" entertainer from Harlem who could sing, dance, play instruments, do impressions, and draw a Colt .45 faster than humanly possible. The lesson of that incredible afternoon in Rome goes beyond just gunfighting technique. It's a reminder that talent comes in unexpected packages, that assumptions about people based on their appearance or profession can be dangerously wrong, and that mastery often exists in places we'd never think to look. Sammy Davis Jr. spent his entire career surprising people who thought they had him figured out. He was a black entertainer in a white industry, a Jewish convert in a Christian culture, a song and dance man who could outdraw Clint Eastwood. The footage from that day still exists somewhere in the Cinecittà Studios archives, a reminder that some of the most incredible moments in entertainment history happen when the cameras are rolling, but nobody expects anything extraordinary to occur. And every time someone watches a Clint Eastwood Western and marvels at his gun-handling skills, they're actually seeing techniques that were refined under the tutelage of the most unlikely gunfighting instructor in Hollywood history. If this incredible story of hidden talent and shattered expectations amazed you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to remember that we all have hidden skills that might surprise the world. Have you ever shocked someone with an unexpected talent? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more unbelievable true stories about the entertainers who were so much more than they appeared to be.